Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Replay Show. I'm your host, Corey Camp, and this week we are rewinding back to an amazing episode about teacher retention that I had with John Willis. We're just playing a few highlights of this episode, but if you want to watch the full episode, be sure to click the link in the notes below. If you want to check out more of the Coach Replay Show, make sure you follow and subscribe to our web show or podcast, and tune in next week for another episode of the Coach Replay Show.
The Learning Policy Institute in 2016 did a survey. A school district that I worked with has done a survey with their teachers that were leaving, and I've seen some similar data in other sources as well, and they all seem to be saying the same thing. The main reason teachers are leaving is the lack of administrative support, and then some of the other factors is professional learning opportunities, the lack of instructional leadership, the lack of time for collaboration and planning, the lack of collegial relationships, and the lack of decision making, or being able to have some decision making input. The primary reasons: administrative support, and then the things that our administrators are doing to create a environment or a working condition, we could say, that's going to make it pleasant for teachers. There's something that wraps around that induction and mentorship program, and that's the working conditions that you're in. So unless we address those working conditions, we're probably not really, we're going to put systems in place that aren't going to address the underarching issue that's causing these problems. And so it's really about working conditions.
Yeah. And I think that speaks a little bit to, even just the culture, the collaborative culture on your building.
Teacher cannot, in this day and age, just go into a classroom, close the door, and teach what they're excited about and expect that that's going to close the achievement gap. We're dealing with human beings. The students, there's a wide diversity of students in terms of their culture, their values, their learning needs. And so it's very abstract, it's very complex. So the only way for us to be successful, and schools that do this are successful, that's going to be an effective professional learning community. So you cannot teach alone. I heard Steve Barkley once call teaching a team sport. And I definitely believe that it should be transparent and it should be a team sport. The concept of psychological safety. So psychological safety, probably first described by Amy Edmondson in her book, in her work at Harvard, and she wrote a book, Fearless Organization, which is very powerful. More recently, Dr. Timothy Clark has written a book on the 4 stages of psychological safety that your viewers might want to listen to, or in an audio fashion, or read the book. But I'm going to describe it the way Timothy Clark describes it. In the 4 stages of this, you need to first feel included and be a part. You need to also feel safe to learn, safe to contribute, and then over time, when appropriate, safe to challenge the status quo. So when I say working conditions, we want to be in an environment where you feel safety on all 4 of these measures. You feel this idea that you are a part of a group and you're doing important work and you have a purpose and your voice is heard, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn. and try to figure this out together. And then, of course, make a contribution. So I do have a document that we could take a quick look at when we're thinking about the 4 stages of psychological safety. And of course, we'll make this available to the viewers. But if we just look directly at this idea of how can leaders do this? So I've got, for inclusion safety, you can see here, leaders can ask new teachers to be a part of a group. It's as simple as that. Invite the members to have a voice, share resources with them, send out information about the meeting ahead of time so that teachers feel like they're a part of this process. And then also give teachers a role. Make sure that everybody on a team, every teacher in the building has an important role to play. And so that's going to make them feel included. When we're thinking about learner safety, leaders can model learning. I was talking to a principal yesterday that I'm working with, and he exemplified this so well by being vulnerable in front of his teachers, by taking advantage of the opportunity to be coached and share his experience of being coached, and let teachers know that that is a part of what we do as educators. We're here to learn, and we've never arrived. Education is too complex to think that we've arrived. So modeling that, engaging the group members in their own learning, providing opportunities, of course, to learn, and protecting them so that they can fail and fail forward and fail quickly, so that we're able to generate some positive movement. And then in terms of that role, so I mentioned earlier, having a role, giving teachers an opportunity to learn about that role. And then next is contributor safety. So leader actions are really to explain the purpose of a particular role that they have, clarify the parameters of those roles, and provide space for teachers to engage with that role and make a positive contribution to the group's overall purpose. So the idea of psychological safety, first and foremost, would be something that a leader could foster, cultivate, and protect for every teacher in the building, to ensure that they are included, deeply included, and that they have learning opportunities and feel safe to do that, make a contribution, make a valuable contribution to the team and to different groups throughout the building, and then provide space for them to get better and innovate and continue to move our work forward.
Again, the psychological safety paves the way, right? It opens the door for those more collegial conversations, for the eventual innovation, challenging that status quo to be able to happen, and kind of electrifies your work environment. But that can't happen without your admin and leader support, and even some professional learning. As you mentioned, there's kind of like these 3 big threads within supporting our teachers.